Facebook here. And we are live. We're live. Okay, everyone, welcome once again to another edition of Just Reason. Host Cedar, Tex, Fetchy. And we have a special guest with us tonight. As you know, most of you know, we're in the midst of election season. Early voting is going on right now. And we have a special guest with us tonight. I will allow her to introduce herself, what she's running for, and then we're going to, do what we do on here, have some casual conversation about real issues. So please introduce yourself, ma'am.
Yeah, so thank you, first of all, for having me. I love having intimate discussions like this and having the opportunity to talk about, things that are important to me. My name is Monica Singh. I was born and raised here in Houston, Texas. I've been an attorney for the past 20 years, and I've done over 100 jury trials, which is a big deal. It doesn't sound like it may be over a 20-year period, but it's a huge deal. So I'm running for Harris County Civil Court at Law, number 4. I've been in and out of these courtrooms for the past 20 years. So I know this courtroom really well. And equally, I'm passionate about community activism. And I'm on the board of the ACLU, the Texas Lyceum, and the Sikh Coalition. I do a lot of work on hate crimes and anything that has to do with childhood bullying, things of that nature. And so I really feel like I have insight to what the community has to offer. And I want to bring that into the courtroom to marry the two with the people that come through the courtroom doors. So this would be a dream job to have. And so I'm looking for the biggest endorsement, which would be your vote.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you. So Monica, so you say you're a candidate for Harris County Civil County Court at Law number 4, right?
That's right.
So in that position, what sort of cases would cross the bench of someone serving in that position?
That's a great question. It's a civil court, so it's not the criminal stuff that we hear. And I don't deal with traffic tickets, which everybody's so excited they think I'm going to dismiss.
Man, yeah, that's why we had you on here. Yeah,
I know. No, so we hear things in the civil court that is up to $250,000. So that means it could be car accidents, it could be breach of contract, evictions, condemnation cases, animal abuse cases. That has a wide variety of things that you end up hearing. And what I love about this is because it's below $250,000, you hear cases that some people come in not represented by an attorney. Whereas like the higher courts have everybody represented by attorneys all the way through. And so I actually feel like this kind of goes back to my community activism, where I have that one-on-one feeling with people within our community coming in the courtroom.
Okay. So, I asked the standard job interview question, why are you, so you've been an attorney for 20 years, obviously being very effective in that position. Why do you want to be in this position? What do you think that you would bring to that position that is needed?
So this thing it's one of those things where, the stars aligned. It was an open seat because the judge that's on this bench right now, she stepped down because she's running for another position. And so that really opened up the door for me not to primary somebody, which means that I'm not opposing somebody who's already sitting on the bench. It was important to me because I've been a Democrat my whole life, and I just did not want to go against somebody who's already in that position. My kids are in college, about to go to college in 2 years. So I thought, this is a great time and opportunity for me to take it. And what I bring to the bench is that experience of being on the ground. None of my opponents have practiced in this courtroom for the past 20 years that I've been in there. And so I literally have that day-to-day experience of coming in and out. So that discussion that I was having about having 100 trials, it means that I'm actively in this courtroom. So I know how it feels to be an attorney and being nervous. I know how it feels to be a client or have a client there who is terrified at that position and being in that. So I have that practical perspective. And then, as I mentioned, with my on the ground work within the community, I have the perspective of what people go through in their daily lives and the struggles that they have. So when they come in the courtroom, I'm not judging them. I already I had that perspective already. So I feel like I have a lot to offer and with my legal experience to bring to this bench. And so it just seems like if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And if it's not this position, I mean, really, this is just geared towards what I enjoy.
Okay. So, fellas, I'm going to ask one question, and then, I mean, jump in whenever and ask. Yeah, because, I'll talk all night. So,
Yes, we
You
know.
met your match, Chris. You met your match.
so I was reading through your website and just looking at a bit about your biography. So I see that you are the child of immigrants. We're all immigrants from Jamaica. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think that your experience growing up as a child of immigrants has impacted your worldview, and how relevant do you think that is for the position that you are seeking?
So being a child of an immigrant, and my parents came in the late 60s, early 70s, and I'm from the Sikh faith, so we've had a huge share of our discrimination, especially after 9/11, with the hate crimes that have been against the Sikh faith. So I have two lenses I operate in, right? The one of being a native Houstonian and being, an American, and then the other one being from a different culture, a different background, and being a part of both those worlds, right? So, as being a child of an immigrant from Jamaica, you have a whole separate life that's cultural, that's different than what your American everyday life is as well. And so I think that experience and us getting this American dream, I mean, I want you to really, think about what my family is going through right now. My grandfather, who lives here in the Woodlands, Texas, voted for me in his mail-in ballot. That's the American dream. His daughter came to this country and he had no idea that he was going to become a citizen, and his daughter was going to be one, and now his granddaughter is on the ballot. So that perspective, it transcends all cultures, because at some point or another, everybody was an immigrant when they came here to America. And I think, again, like if we think about our Hispanic immigrants as well, the language barriers and the things that everybody goes through, we all go through it together. And having that, I think it brings that perspective in, because I'm not far removed from it. So I know the struggles of immigrants and people that are here.
Okay. Fellas?
Well, I mean, my first question is easy. What you think will be your hardest maneuver in the position?
Well, like maneuver to get into the judge's position?
No, when you're there, what you think would be the hardest thing you might have to do as the person in the position?
So I think, that the following the law is your main goal, right? Whenever you're on that bench, everything that you deal with and you go through has to do with what the law presents itself. And sometimes when you hear cases and the people that are there and their emotional portion of it, and putting that aside and ruling just based on the law, I think that's going to be a personal challenge, but I'm up for it because I've practiced law for so long and I understand what the law is and how to apply it. But I think that that's obviously something that I personally will rule with compassion, but it's going to be something I'd have to be conscious of as well.
Okay.
So just from our conversation, I can tell that you're very well-grounded and very likable person, being a...
And she's a Longhorn.
Is she really?
Yep, yeah. Hey,
See that we just won Jeopardy yesterday?
Oh, wow.
She did?
A big day. It's a big
Sorry
day.
to cut you off. Go ahead. All right,
Okay.
go ahead. All right.
No problem.
I just remembered.
A sick male who's a Longhorn won Jeopardy, college Jeopardy.
Was it the whole thing, or was it just
the whole
qualifying?
thing.
Oh, wow.
We're claiming all of it. We won the whole thing.
I think that's a sign. That's a
It's
sign.
a sign.
Because I was following it. I didn't even know it was yesterday. But anyway, sorry, Tech.
They lit up the tower for him. This is
really?
Yeah, that's a big deal. We don't just
exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right.
Oh, maybe
Back
back
to you,
to my.
Miss.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
How great
So-
it is.
Back to the important question.
Yeah. So my question is, being a woman of color and of immigrant status, what do you think will be the hardest challenges for you in this seat when you get elected?
So I think any stigma that you have just being as an immigrant or a person of color, there's obviously a lot of things. Sometimes you have to work harder, right, to prove that you're that person, and that you have that quality and the skill set that you have. The difference is that because I've been in this space for 20 years, being an active litigator, my community in the legal field knows me, and so my work has spoken for itself. They know that I'm like a fighter for implicit bias training and talking about diversity inclusion. So I kind of have that those obstacles that normally people would have kind of cleared for me because I've had that space. So I guess the idea would be for the people who are not familiar with me and who don't know me, will have to get to know where I come from and who I am and what I stand for. And I think that that's just a challenge that most women have in general. And then a woman of color on top of it, like I said, sometimes you have to work a little bit harder to, level the playing field.
Gotcha.
Okay. So kind of like along the same lines, with President Biden, when he was running, he made, so when I give an opportunity to nominate a Supreme Court justice, I'm going to nominate a Black woman, right?
Yep.
And now they're having a hiss fit over that. Oh, he says he's going to nominate a Black woman. So my question on that is, from the Supreme Court on down, how important do you believe it is for the judiciary to look like the communities that they serve?
So my race would be historical. If I was to win this position, I'd be the first female Sikh judge in the nation. So it's not here. It's Harris County can make history by making me the first female Sikh judge in the nation.
Well, you should have led with that.
See, this is that woman of color thing. I gotta my status first that I'm legit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big deal. We're the 5th largest religion. For us not to have that representation, it's a big deal. And so when you think about it, and I'll tell you, like, me running and putting my name out there, I've only been able to do it for a short amount of time because my predecessor has just stepped down, and the amount of DMs I've gotten is astounding to me. And the reason I'm bringing it out is because this is what I mean by impactful work and representation and how it matters. I've gotten DMs from people from other states who was like, hey, is this the same Monica that was arranging these children's camps here in Houston or whatever? I just want to tell you how much you impacted my life by being a strong woman and paving the way. And so when you think about that on a scale of just me running, imagine what I could do if I'm sitting on the bench and they walk through the courtroom doors and they're like, oh, this is a person of authority who looks like me. I have that possibility of being in that position. As it is in Houston, I was the first Sikh attorney that practiced here ever. And so for when I was going through law school, I didn't have the network that my classmates did. Their dads and their uncles and aunts were all attorneys, and they just went there. I didn't even have community members I could shadow. Now, if I wanted to be a doctor or an engineer, there was like, a dime a dozen of those, but not attorneys. So, to Joe Biden's point of having a Supreme Court justice that's a Black female, me being the first, we need to stop having these firsts. These firsts should be long overdone, and we need to move forward and show what we look like everywhere we go.
Oh man, yeah, I love that. Yeah, so when Biden was about say when Breyer say he's going to hang up the seat and there's going to be a Black woman, a lot of the talk was just about it's historical, it's going to be history, it's going to be history. And I was watching this program, and this attorney, this Black attorney, was on there and saying, yeah, the history is cool and all that, but what matters is bringing the lived experience of a Black woman to the Supreme Court. They've had 1,000 white men. They've had a couple Black men, but there's never been a perspective of a Black woman. There's a Latina woman. There are just other women in general. So I never looked at it. I was just at first I was thinking about this is history, but when she said she's bringing the lived experience of a Black woman to that bench. So, so I, and so, so I guess the question is, how do you believe that your lived experience as a woman of color, of the Sikh faith, how do you believe that lived experience will impact the work that you do in this position that we're all claiming for you already?
So, and I'll take your claim and I'll see it through. So in the Sikh faith, we fight for a lot of our principles are based in fighting for injustice. And so I think about my lived experience of all the hate crimes and the compromises that we've had to make by being in this country, and all the education that we've done to tell people who we are and what we stand for and what we believe in, the accommodation policies that we've had to make for us to serve in the army or in police forces. Those are all my lived experiences of making sure that everybody's included in and this environment is inclusive. Now, the civil county courts, that the one that I'm running for, we have 4 courtrooms that anybody can file a suit in, and they get randomly assigned. The other 3, 2 are Black females, and 1 is an LGBTQ male. And if you look at it, and I come in and I round out that with my experience of being a Sikh female, I mean, just think about the breadth of experience and the breadth of life experiences we bring to this. It really is, it really would be a huge shift for Harris County to have this type of diversity, and the judges that they come before when they walk in through those doors. I mean, it's a big deal. So I think it's very important.
Okay. Gentlemen?
Do you think you can get a fair shot being Sikh?
Yes, absolutely. I think I have a very fair shot because of my pedigree in terms of like the education and experience that I've had. My community activism, as you can see, speaks for itself on my website. So I guess I should give a shout out to Facebook as well. It's www.singhforjudge.com, SINGH for judge, like spelling out for judge.com. It will show you that I am Houston through and through. I was born and raised here. I claim it everywhere I go, and I claim it every time I'm in here. And so because of my active involvement, I don't just have a fair shot. I really should get this position because I'm expecting that the voters will see that I'm the most qualified person for this position.
Who are you running against? You don't have to know their names.
Because
we don't want to give them any shine, but.
Well, it's actually, I like this question because people are always interested in knowing, and I'll also tell you why I'm better than them in terms of the positioning.
Perfect.
Let's get it.
In terms of why am I better choice? I should say that because they're actually they're very nice people. So I don't want to say it in a negative manner on them or a shadow showing.
But they just ain't you.
Yeah, they're just not my experience that I'm bringing to this. Okay, so the first opponent, so I'm number 1 on the ballot. So I'll be listed as MK Monica Singh, number 1 on the ballot. The number 2 person is a justice of the peace judge, and he's been a justice, which is the lower court below this county court position. And he's been the justice of the peace for the last 33 years. So you can imagine that the last time he practiced in a courtroom was 33 years ago. Since then, I have gone through high school, college, law school, had 2 kids, and practiced 20 whole years. Our life has changed. 9/11's happened. Since then, George Floyd has happened. So many things in our world have changed, but he's sat on that bench for that long. So that fresh perspective included with experience comes with me being on that. So that's my first opponent. The second opponent that I have is a family law attorney. So she has been a family law attorney for 10 some years and was originally running for a family court judge position, which she was well qualified for. However, she left that race to come to this one because it was an open seat or for whatever her reason is. But just to give you perspective on this, I personally would never file my own divorce or anybody's divorce in family court because that would be malpractice on my part. I don't practice in those courtrooms. I don't understand that. And it's not easily applicable. The rules may be the same, but they're not applicable laws that you can interchange like that. So for her not to have even filed 1 lawsuit in this case or defended 1 lawsuit in this courtroom, I don't think it's a good fit for her to run in this position. So those are my 2 opponents, and those are the differences as to why I believe I should earn your vote on election day.
Okay. So are you on the ballot like throughout Harris County, or is it
All
like
of
in
Harris
certain
County.
areas? Okay. So
No,
if you're in Harris County, then you're on the ballot. Okay.
all of Harris County, which is obviously challenging in itself. And, you know, a lot of things I've learned just by running. I've worked on so many people's campaigns, but running, I've learned a lot more. You know, we've got 5 million citizens here, and we got like 1.5 registered voters, which is hard, right, to understand that with the city of 5 million, that there's only that many people that are voting. What the election gods predict is that we'll probably get about 125 to 140,000 people to vote, and they determine your local politics. So that's it. That's what determines what happens in our entire local government. 120 to 130, 40,000 people out of 5 million. So that's how important primary elections are. That's how important local politics are. And that's why you guys having this forum really, really moves that needle, because it really awakens people to understand that if they don't exercise their right to vote, these little skip out elections, you know, that are not on presidential years or whatever have you, they change your life more than the big federal government does.
Exactly.
And people don't think about that. So it's very important for us to come out and exercise our right to vote.
Okay. Judge Bates, I see that you're there, but I don't know if you're actually there. I just see your name there. But if you are there, come on camera so we can have it. Oh, there. Oh, hey. There
She
we go.
is. Welcome.
Do you two know each other, by the way?
On the campaign trail, we meet everybody. We all know.
Okay.
We're all commiserating in misery.
Yeah. So here's candidate number 2. Yeah. So I want this to be a discussion. But it ended up being like an interview, but it's just a discussion amongst candidates. But so now, Judge Bates, let's interview you, and then we'll have a discussion. So give us a background and introduce yourself to the people.
A little bit. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Lucia Bates. I am Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3, Place 2. My court is located in Baytown. However, I preside over cases, JP cases in Channelview, North Shore, Northeast, Sheldon, and of course, Baytown. I've lived in Texas for 43 years, which is a lot longer than a lot of people have been around.
Like me, for example.
I'm sorry. I've lived and I have been an active member of this community for 43 years. Part of what I am, committed to my job, like my prior positions. I'll tell you a little bit about what positions I have held. So I'm currently the board trustee for HCA Hospital Southeast. I just got reelected for 3 more years. I'm just trying to show you how actively involved I'm in the community, besides having to do my job on the bench, which I'm going to also explain to you. I am on the Galena Park ISD Community Leadership Council. I've been there for 8 years. I'm board committee, membership board committee of the North Shore Rotary. I've been on the Rotary for about 8 years as well. Nominating board committee for North Channel Chamber of Commerce. I was the first Black or African American chairman of the North Channel Chamber of Commerce in 40 years. So I was the first there. And top ladies of distinction, Baytown chapter. I chair the Status of Women Committee. I am the vice president of my homeowners association. I did preside as the president, but once I became a JP, I stepped down because I did not want to handle the architectural committee because it would be a conflict of interest. I've collaborated since being on the board. Before I tell you what I do, during the pandemic, I've had 6 food drives. I've sponsored bicycle giveaways, collaborated with City of Baytown on many initiatives, work with the National Junior Honor Society. I am a member of just about every Chamber of Commerce there is, Baytown, Highlands, Crosby, Huffman. In fact, last week I swore in the Highlands Chamber. This Thursday, in fact, tomorrow, I swear in the Crosby, Huffman Chamber of Commerce. I am a board director, a political advisor for the Houston Caribbean Professional Association. And yeah, which is such an honor to be part of you guys. I'm seeking re-election because I am the only candidate in this race with experience in this position. I have established key relationships, very influential relationships that allows me to be able to get things done. In addition to what I do, I'm able to do a lot for the community by getting volunteers and getting donations, because that's where I get the money from to be able to do anything I'm able to do, for the community. I'm successfully running an efficient court, and I'd love to continue to be the positive change agent in this court. The Sheriff's Department pretty much call me the working judge because I walk the talk, and my court is known as the People's Court. So fire away.
All right. So with that background,
she has to be Caribbean. She has like 20 jobs. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the family.
I DJ on the side.
Well,
You gotta do that. You gotta do that shit,
I
though,
should
to
be
show
Jamaican,
them.
but I am St. Lucia.
Oh,
There you go. See, I know it. It had to be.
Lucia,
Yeah, there you go.
I am St. Lucia.
Ah, okay. So, all right. So that was going to be my next question. I knew the answer, but I just wanted you to tell. Lucia Bay from St. Lucia. How could you possibly forget that? All right. So, I spent a little time on your website. Just getting a background. So I saw that you said you wanted your courtroom to be known as the People's Court.
Okay.
So I wanted to just kind of ask you, why do you think that that's important, that people see the court, your court, as something for the people? Yeah, like doing community service. What why do you think that's important in your role?
Well, for starters, it's just wonderful when individuals who come into court. I mean, there was an idea or a thought that if you came into court, especially if you came into JP court, you either got a ticket or you wanted to get married. That's why people came to JP courts. But you find out that there's so much more to it. And you want to make sure when someone comes into your court, they're treated with respect. That's why I call it the People's Court. You're treated with respect. You're treated with dignity. Nobody wants to come to court to pay a ticket. Now, some of the other things that you're not aware of that I do at court is I preside over a variety of cases. Small claims court is now anything from, it used to be up to $10,000. Now it's up to $20,000. So we do, preside over small claims and debt claims. We do evictions. And as you know, it has been very challenging with the pandemic.
That can't be fun.
Yes, no, that has not been fun, but there's a way of coming up with solutions. And when I say the People's Court, when someone comes in, we've got to think about not only the tenant, we have to think about the landlord, okay? Because it's both of them. You may have a tenant who may have gotten COVID, they may have lost their jobs, and you try to do the best that you can with them. You also have the landlord who probably leased rented that house to that tenant, who has to pay a mortgage as well. So you've got a lose-lose situation till they come into my court, and I've got the resources available. I have associations with Houston Rent Relief, Texas Rent Relief, the Alliance Group, Catholic Charities, and I have a variety of individuals in my court speaking to both those individuals before I even come in. Before I even come in, they do talk to them and try to come up with a resolution. When I walk into the court, when we have an evictions, I let them know that, okay, Mr. Smith's here, and he's explained to you that these are resources available to you, to be able to help you out. Are you willing to work with them? So this is a second point, a second time that I'm touching them. First, I do it, I'm not there, and I provide them with those resources. Then when I come and I reiterate what has just transpired, give them another opportunity to pretty much go with Mr. Smith or whichever organization that's there to help them, And then so most of the time we're able to come, to a resolution unless the landlord has had 2 years of everybody else paying the rent, and this individual just has gotten so comfortable that they have decided, well, you know what, enough is enough, I just need my home. And in that case, I've got to relinquish, and the eviction, proceeds. So I'm the only court in Harris County that handles the driver's license suspensions. So there are 16 JP courts, okay? There are 8 precincts, 2 JPs per precinct. So that's where you get the 16 JP courts. So the driver's license suspensions, you may have received a ticket in Katy and you decided to move to California, okay? And your license is expired. You go to renew your license and you found that, wait a minute, I've got a ticket in Texas, in Katy, well, wherever, in Texas that I have not paid. Pre-pandemic, you would have had to fly or drive, okay, to Houston, drive all the way to Baytown, to my court, to take care of that one ticket because your license would have been suspended. Well, thank God we've got the Zoom. And so I pretty much run a hybrid court, which is going to be that way going forward. Because now we can get on the phone, we can get on Zoom, and we can resolve that ticket. And you can move on, and you can be in California and not have to drive or fly to Baytown. So that's one of the really good things I think has come out of that pandemic. It's being able to utilize Zoom. Okay. So that's one of the things. I also handle the mental health docket. Now, not all the courts do mental health. I'm the only one that does the driver's license suspensions. The mental health, we have individuals who are they're high schoolers, they may be teenagers, or they may be PhDs who happen to have a mental issue. And so I've got to I get those cases every other month. And my job is to decide whether this individual gets to go home or not. Okay. The doctor may have stated one thing, their attorneys may have said something else, and the counselor may have said something else. There might also be a witness. And I've got to listen to every single one of them and make the determination, does this young man or young woman still remain, at the facility to get further treatment, or should they be released? That is a hard job. That right there is a hard job because you're dealing with people's livelihood. They want to go home, and sometimes they think they're ready to go home and they're not. So we got to make the tough decisions. I also magistrate, and when I say magistrate, February, I was told, well, early February, received a call about 12:35 in the morning. I needed to magistrate a young man, 13 years old, right outside of downtown, who had shot a 14-year-old friend. And there was nobody to be found. And we're talking 12:35 in the morning. I got up, got dressed. I felt totally protected because there were lots of, deputies around me. But I had to do my job, right? Didn't make it back home till 4:35 in the morning, and I had to turn around because I had, I think I had small claims court, or I had court at 9 o'clock that morning. And so these are some of the things you do.
You can't call in sick to court?
No. well. You know you're going to be out. You can always ask a visiting judge, because but I have a truancy as well.
Okay. Gentlemen, you have any questions for Judge Bates? I have several, but I'm trying not to do all the talking. Mr. Farron, I'll call on you.
Sure. Judge Bates, why civil law? Why did you choose that?
Well, I think I had for this position, Justice of the Peace, it's a different position. It's not the criminal, it's a common sense. Someone with common sense can do Justice of the Peace. work. In my background, I have done so much, and all my affiliations with, like I just told you, I'm pretty well balanced. It takes someone with a certain temperament. It takes someone that's able to listen really well and is able to make really good decisions. And it was really attractive for me because it's like all my affiliations, it made sense. It made sense for the next step. And I'm able to help and provide solutions, which is what I think I do very well.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask Attorney Singh the same question. I mean, why civil law?
Well, so I think that what I used to see on TV with the, criminal law and stuff, it seems so intense, interesting, and all the rest. And so I thought that I was actually going to go in that direction, to be quite honest. And it ended up happening to where I hooked onto the civil law perspective. And funny story, because remember how I talked to you about like Indian people being all doctors and stuff like that too.
Right.
I was like, I'm not going to med school. I'm definitely not doing med school because that's not my thing. And when I was in law school, I got an internship with a firm that was suing doctors and pharmaceutical companies. So I started basically learning medicine to, sue. And then I ultimately ended up defending doctors. That was how I started my career. First of all, like the first 6-7 years, I defended doctors. And that was when I was like more intrigued by that perspective. And I thought I thought I was going to do criminal because it was so fascinating to me and all the rest. And I ended up changing it just based off of my exposure in an internship. So, talking about opportunities that we necessarily don't receive because our communities aren't as plugged into every single profession. Once you get that exposure, you never know what's going to, become attractive to you or your profession. And that's how I ended up in civil law. But I still do love watching, Dateline and all the other stuff. It's super fascinating to me. But I don't,
it makes for good TV.
It's great TV, but I don't practice it.
Yeah. So all right. So my question now is, but there are a lot of issues going on in our country right now. So I've lived in the U.S. over 30 years, and I would say I said the last 6 years have been the most challenging years. And not in my personal life, but just in the country, where I started looking at America different, right? Where the first time I actually thought, do I want to spend the rest of my life in this country? Like, I never thought that before, except for the past 6 years. And it seems that our democracy just in general is under attack in many different ways. From the right to vote, and it feels like people's votes don't count, and if you do vote and you wait in this line for 3 hours, then there's a chance they may throw it out, or because some politicians decided that they don't want your vote to count, so they're going to do stuff. So there's just a lot of that going on, not just all around the country. So it's I guess from both of you, as members of the judiciary, or Attorney Singh, you are about to be. What role do you believe there is in, for the court system to, in making people believe that their voices really matter, that their vote will actually count, and we don't just give up on this democracy because the people who are in power right now do not want to relinquish it. So it's not really you kind of get where I'm coming from. There's a lot going on. So speak on that.
So Chris, honestly, and this point is a very important point to me, and I'm going to tell you where my crossroads was. Like, my parents immigrated here. I was born and raised here, and so for me, I was waiting for my bar results when 9/11 happened. So I wasn't a full-fledged attorney. I had finished law school. I just hadn't gotten my license yet. 9/11 happened, and as I mentioned earlier, the first hate crimes were against a Sikh male in Mesa, Arizona. He was shot dead 3 days later. that was the first time in my life. And at that point, I think I was like 24, 25.
He was the uncle of somebody I worked with at the time.
Oh my God, what a small world.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So that was the first time when I was like, wait, this is my country, but I feel like I'm not a part of this country because I was the other, right? Like this is when I'm having discussions with my brother who has a turban, my grandfather, you know, who has a turban. And I'm like, hey, you may not want to walk outside. It's just that challenge in your head where you're like, where's America headed? I'm American, but yet I'm not being treated like I'm American. I can't mourn the loss of all these American lives right now because now I'm thinking, oh gosh, we got to think about our safety too, right? So I think at that point in time, you know, and there was also in 2012, there was a white supremacist who had gone into our place of worship in Wisconsin and gunned down six. And that's 6-6, yeah. And then also another part, like where I had to think about like, what are we doing? Like, are we still gonna be welcoming? We're still gonna do this. And let me tell you, I don't know if it's based in, you know, not just faith, but based in my legal profession and what we stand for and our Constitution. What I do know is this: when things go awry, like they did even in the 60s for the Civil Rights Act to come about, we have to know that we have to come together and we have to have a united stance and we have to know that we're all in this together for us to fight whatever it is that we need to fight. And so have that fundamental base that once we come together, we have a voice and we can actually make change. We've done it in the past, we can do it again. And so while it feels like very defeatist, you're right, there's a lot of things that are happening right now. Hell, even what happened with Abbott, it's still like all these things are very fluid right now and it's not fun. So what I found is if we go back to our base of we can fight this, we can mobilize together, we can all be on the same ground. Our Constitution gives us the ability to make these changes. That's what we need to do. So we need to mobilize our people rather than, you know, feeling deflated like we can't do anything about it and our world is about to end.
Okay. Word. Judge Bates.
So your question would be like, you know, what can we do in our positions to have people believe in the system? Okay, pretty much believe in the democracy.
Yep.
I believe the golden rule, do unto others as you'd like them do unto you, but your word should speak for itself. Okay, sometimes, you know, individuals, you know, want to think, well, don't do what I say, but do, you know, don't do what I do, but do as I say. It doesn't work that way. I live by the VCP module that goes, is the visibility, the credibility. Do what you say you're going to do. If I need to have someone trust me, okay, they've got to see that if they ask for something, if I don't know the answer, I will provide them with the answer. I will find out whatever it is they need to try to get them so they can look at me as a credible individual. And that's where the trust has to come back to, is because there are a lot of people that don't do what they say. They don't walk the talk. They talk a lot, but they don't walk it. They don't do, and that's the lack of trust that we're looking at right now, where a lot of individuals are going, well, these politicians are no good and they're not doing this and they're not doing that. Because somewhere along the line, you know, along the road, that the credibility got lost. Credibility got lost. There's a work ethic that we have, being from the Caribbean, that I don't think there's anybody that can outwork us. Seriously. Okay. And
except for us. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew that was coming. I was waiting for it.
You know, there's that integrity that you have. I remember growing up, my grandmother teaching us two words, and one was diplomacy and one was decorum. The diplomacy is be careful what you say. Sometimes people say things to you because they expect a certain rise out of you, but don't give it to them. Hold back, listen more, conduct yourself, like she used to say, accordingly. Just be diplomatic about how you respond, because everything does not require a trigger action. Not everything. Sometimes people are saying things or even doing things to get a rise out of you, but you can't let folks control you that way, you know? And that decorum is just always carry yourself a certain way. And I know that you guys were told that by your parents. When you leave this house, you represent this family. You know, you leave this house, you represent this family. So you carry yourself a certain way that's, you know, and people, like, sometimes people might think it's arrogant. They might think you're being arrogant. You're not being arrogant. This is how you were raised. This is how you were brought up. It's just a way about you. That's a lot of people can't figure it, you know, out what it is. Something about this girl. I'm not quite sure. I can't put my finger on it. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But I'll tell you what I have been through, even through my first election and this one as well. So
how long have you held this position? I meant to ask.
This is my fourth year.
Fourth year, okay.
This is my fourth year. And usually when people can't get at me or get under my skin, the way to come at me would be, well, you know, she's not from around these parts anyway. And I'm not hearing this from white folks. I'm telling you, I'm hearing this from Black folks. Do you understand that? So when I'm through with all of this and the book comes out, and here's the name, so you look for it. It's going to be called Being a Minority Within a Minority. I have lived this the entire 43 years that I have been here. There's a lot in there. Look for it.
Yeah. So, you said something about, just the trust is broken, right? And when I see like voter participation in some countries versus the US, at first I was like, well, people just don't care, right? But that's part of it. But I think a lot of people just kind of get disillusioned, right? Like it's not making any difference anyway, right? Like being a Democrat in Texas, where we know that, like from a population state, if you look at the number of, Blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and what have you, it's like, we should be able to compete on a pretty fair basis. But it's like once they have power, they lock onto that power and they redraw districts and whatever to just try and lessen your power. So like those are the type of things that make people say, you know what, let me just go to work and do my thing and take care of my family, and I didn't worry about any of that. And so it's a real challenge, right? And then just when you just in light of like what's going on here in the US and just what's going on around the world, what's going on, what's going on in Russia right now, I think democracy in general is under attack around the world, where people are saying, is this really the best way to run a country? Right? If people just bickering over nothing is, where people like China, their view is, look, you just have a strong man in that position, and he said, this is what we're going to do, and we do it. And not all this bickering about nothing. So I think that's going to be a real challenge for us as a democracy. And I applaud everyone who puts their foot in that arena and aims to make a difference because I know it has to be frustrating. I know it will be frustrating, but you have our support, and we need people like both of you to be in that fight, and we'll support you as much as we can. We spoke a little bit about different things, so kind of understand your heart and where your hearts and kind of where how you view things. And we need more people like that in the fight. But there's a challenge. So as we get ready to kind of wrap this up, let me just kind of give y'all a chance to give some final thoughts. We'll start with Judge Singh.
If you say it, it'll be coming.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Speak it into existence.
Give us some final thoughts. Anything about websites or anything about the ballot people need to know. Whatever you need to say, get it out there.
Absolutely. First of all, tomorrow voting, it's still early voting tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow is till 10 o'clock at night. So that should open up the door while they've restricted a lot of our voter laws. 10 o'clock at night is still helpful for us to get the vote out. Then election day, which is March 1st, you have to go to your exact polling location. For early voting, you can go to any polling location you need to. Again, I know
And when does early voting end?
it ends on Friday, which is just in
Okay,
2 days. So
Friday.
you've got
Okay,
2
gotcha.
days to vote,
Okay.
early voting.
I
And then-
voted already, but
Well, good. I hope you picked the right choice.
yeah, I'm in Fort Bend, so I couldn't vote for you.
Okay, well, as long as you voted. So
Yeah.
on that note, I mean, that's what while I'm here to tell you to vote for me and tell you my qualifications, what's most important is that we get voter turnout that's there, that counts. If you look at the numbers are dismal. We've got to get our people out there. Our voice needs to be heard. We cannot complain about anything if we don't exercise the rights that we do have. So it is my plea to everyone to get out there, vote, go to harrisvotes.com. If you need to find out what location you need to go to, the hours you need to go to, and please vote. Go to the bottom of the ballot. Studies show that people get ballot fatigue and 30% of the people fall off towards the end when they feel like they've already voted on the top. It is important for you to go all the way till the end. And it is a process that is, it's the first time you'll be doing this paper ballot thing, but once you get the hang of it, it's very easy to get to. You just go, you vote in and you come back out. So I plead for everyone to vote. If you'd like to find out more about myself, my website again is www.singforjudge.com, SINGHFOR judge.com. And I, again, appreciate your time in this forum for you to have us on here and have an open discussion about our perspective.
Quick question. Did you also reserve SING for judge.com? You should.
I should have.
Yes. All right. Okay.
For the re-election. That'll be the re-election campaign.
There we go. All right. Sing for judge. All right.
Well, I do say, Chris, I say sing for sing. I say that.
Sing for sing.
Sing for
All right.
sing.
That's a good one. Sing for sing.
Yes.
Judge
sing for sing.
Bates, give
Okay.
us some final thoughts and information of,
Okay, so again, I'm not going to reiterate what the Singh said, but I'll just continue. This is my first re-election campaign. I have utilized innovation in the courtroom. I've streamlined the backlog of age cases. I'm committed to my position, and I have initiatives that had been postponed due to the pandemic. The community trusts my judgment and my fairness in the court. And I would love to be able to be the positive change agent at the People's Court. My website is www.luciabates, LUCIABATESJP.com. I am #1 on the ballot. Again, I'm all the way at the bottom, but out of the others,
scroll down.
Scroll all the way down. I am #1 on the ballot. And again, my area is Baytown, Northeast, North Shore, Sheldon, Channelview, and Northeast, Baytown, Channelview.
What county is that, by the way?
It's Harris County.
Is Harris also?
Yes, I
Okay,
am
all right.
still, it's East Harris County.
Okay.
I am Harris County, and yeah, I am #1 on the ballot. Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3, Place 2, Lucia Bates.
Lucia Bates representing St. Lucia.
One more technicality.
Yes.
When you go to harrisvotes.com, you can also get your sample ballot. The reason that's important is because you cannot take your cell phone into the voting booth. So, when you're going through all your races, you need to write down who you want to vote for before you go into the booth. So that way you're able to register all those votes when you get there.
All right. So you mentioned something just now about paper ballots.
Yes.
Is that new? Did Harris County take a step backwards?
No,
Is
so
that-
actually, I was complaining about this too, because I was like, where did this come from? Whatever. Apparently the Democratic Party also had an issue with this too, where we wanted to make sure that it was documented. It just came to fruition after so many years that we are lumping it into the voter rights issue that's happening before us right now, right? But this is a new ballot machine, and it has paper ballots where you feed in a paper ballot, you go and do the touch screen for all
Okay.
your choices. So
All right.
it's
And then
a fusion.
okay, gotcha. Okay.
And then once, so it's not a paper ballot like the hanging shads. We're not dealing with that.
Okay. That's what I thought you were saying.
No, but you do have to
Okay.
feed it in the machine, and you have to feed it
Yeah.
the right way, and you have to have it printed out, and you get to review every single one of your choices, and then you put it in the ballot box. So
Yeah.
it's to help out with those errors.
Yeah, I mean, just if if those in power really wanted the voice of the people to be heard, there's no reason why we can't vote from our cell phones, right? I mean,
There should be an app
we
for
do
that.
our taxes, we do all sorts of really confidential stuff on our, but it's intended, and these are the things that are frustrating to people because they intentionally do not want people, unless you're like really diehard and committed. They only want them to vote. And that's why our government looks the way it looks. Anyway, that's
But let's do something about it.
let's do it.
But let's start at the local level.
Yes, and that's an important point that you both brought out.
Local.
Look, we watch the news, and the presidential election and what's going on in Washington gets all the attention.
Right.
Nothing affects our lives on a day-to-day basis more than what happens at the local level. So right. It's important to vote, and it's important to vote in every single election, every single one.
Yes.
So, gentlemen, do you want to give some final thoughts?
I just want to thank these ladies for coming on tonight and giving us their perspective. I'm really actually inspired by them. I mean, I barely have time to get to the gym, and they have like 12 jobs each. So thank y'all for that.
So do we get an outro with the music or what? I mean, do we not?
We'll do it in the when we cut the video. Yeah.
Oh wait, you can have good music on for the people. Like the voice of the people.
Yeah. Come on, DJ Tex, run some music.
I know what happened. What happened?
We got it.
Especially your final thoughts.
Oh, I mean, anywhere in the legal system where we can have, women actively participating or even ruling on important decisions. We love that. They have a unique perspective that, men have been lacking for centuries. So, we want more heart in the legal system. And it has been lacking that for a long time. So I applaud both women for being.
I have one last point. And this is very controversial. We have an East Indian and we have a West Indian on here. So the question is it curry chicken or chicken curry?
Anything?
We have one more curry chicken.
Listen, I speak 5 languages, but it's always chicken curry in all the languages.
Oh Lord. And that is 100% incorrect.
All right, okay. It's a chicken fry or chicken jerk. Anyway, all right. So thank you, boy. I don't really get it. Most of what I have to say I said during the program, but I really appreciate you both coming on here and speaking to the people. I think these forums such as this are very important. You have your big Channel 11, KPRC or what have you, but you get at the grassroots level in different communities and speak to people about what you're about and what you want to do for the community, and that's how you make connections. So I appreciate you both for coming on, taking some time out to talk to our audience. Next time, bring a glass of wine and let's, have a proper reason. So, all right, everyone, thank you for joining us. So until next time, Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us for Just Reason. Thank you once again, Judge Singh and Judge Bates. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right.